Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here in North Carolina. Anna's taken some time off from her public appearances, but she has not stopped her very important work as the fiduciary of the United States of America, and she is powerfully moving the needle forward. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel, and we are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you. We're sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. Today, I have some information for you from Anna. And she's also asked us to do a little bit of research and to get, familiar with what is going on with the farm with a lot of these farm cases. So I'm going to share some information with you guys about this. So she wanted me to talk to you about the farm union cases and really wanted everyone to get a full grasp on that. Before we get started, let me see if there's a few things going on in the questions that I might be able to answer. Here's a good one. Qzilla. What's going on with Trump ordering the military to comply with the Constitution, true or not? And what's going on, or what's that GFG status? Okay, I don't know anything about GFG, but I asked Anna about Trump and what was going on, and I'm going to tell you exactly. Because I asked her to confirm for me about the notices. And if you don't know what notices I'm talking about, I'll share them on the Telegram channel so you can see them there. But basically, Trump made a declaration of authority and summons. And I can read it to you. It says, by the authority vested in the President of the United States of America as Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution and the immutable laws of common law sovereignty, it is hereby declared, number one, lawful command under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the CMJ. Every flag officer of the United States Armed Forces by oath and by law is bound to obey the lawful orders of the Commander-in-Chief. The UCMJ affirms that all generals and admirals remain subject to such orders, including the command to assemble. Number two, sovereign right under common law. From ancient precedent to modern practice, the head of a sovereign republic or kingdom holds the prerogative to summon his military leaders for counsel, recognition of authority, and the reordering of a nation's defense. This right is both inherent and incontestable. Just for the record, we aren't a republic because that's part of the Roman Curia. We're not a republic. We are supposed to be afforded to enjoy a republican form of government. So being a republic would be part of the Caesars. That's not what we are, okay? Number three, summons to assembly. Therefore, by order of His Excellency of the Western Kingdom, in case you didn't comprehend that he's working for the Queen, you should get it right about now. And President of the United States for America, all flag officers are hereby summoned to Virginia on September 30th, 2025. This assembly shall formally recognize and reaffirm allegiance to the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, which he can't do, so he's not getting it exactly. Number four, restoration of sovereignty. Upon this recognition, all military outposts and operations abroad that were established under British Commonwealth or foreign dominion shall be lawfully closed or transferred, securing America's independence in full. Now, that is a good one. That's important. I hope you guys comprehend that piece because, A, he stated that it was being run by foreigners all this time. He admits it. And that it should be lawfully closed, all those unlawful mercenary camps and they should be transferred. Securing America's independence in full. Okay. Then he says number 5, binding duty. This order is issued in fulfillment of the president's sacred duty to uphold the Constitution, which means he's under the Constitution, which means he's under us because we stand under the Declaration of Independence and over all 3 constitutions. So he's saying that right here. Protect the people and preserve the sovereignty of the republic, which he still doesn't know what he's talking about right there. All officers are bound by oath, honor, and law to obey. So they had a meeting. And I put this in front of Anna and I asked her about that. That was paired with this document, this other document. It's the Executive Office of the President, Office of Management and Budget from Washington, D.C. It was a memorandum to the heads of executive departments and agencies. And the subject was state of agency operations. And it says appropriations provided under the full year continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act 2025 public law expire at 11:59 p.m. tonight. This was, it says tonight on September 19th, the House of Representatives, this was written on September 30th. So yeah, at midnight basically, or 1 minute before midnight on September 30th. And then it says on September 19th, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 5371, a clean continuing resolution that would fund the government through November 21st. Unfortunately, Democrat senators are blocking passage. I'm pretty sure they have to. So pretty fun and interesting. So it was blocked. Okay. President Trump supports passage HR, but it is now clear that the Democrats will prevent passage of this clean CR prior to 11:59 p.m. tonight and force a government shutdown. As such, affected agencies should now execute their plans for an orderly shutdown. It is unclear how long the Democrats will maintain their untenable posture, making the duration of the shutdown difficult to predict. Regardless, employees should report to work for their next regularly scheduled tour of duty to undertake orderly shutdown activities. We will issue another memorandum indicating that government functions should resume once the president has signed a bill providing for appropriations. I'm sure he's not going to be doing that. Okay. Agencies should continue to closely monitor developments, and OMB will provide further guidance as appropriate. We greatly appreciate your cooperation in the work your agencies do on behalf of the American people. On behalf of, because they're not American. They're not the Americans. So I said, Anna, what can you tell me about this? And she says it's true, but they need to do something else administratively because this announcement was made without passing it by me, and they don't quite understand how this is supposed to work. They can only think in terms of bank loans, but no, this is not a loan. It's a return of the person's own money and credit, not a loan. And so I asked her, I said, are they recognizing you now? Because it seems like they are course correcting, when she's noticing them. And I said, but do you actually feel like they recognize you and the Americans? To which she said, yes, they are beginning to across all the board, all across the board. Sorry, all across the board. I thought that was good. Good news. So I will post that and share that there so that, you guys can see what it looks like if you have not already seen it. And yeah, I'm sure that they are trying to figure it out, Kizilla. They are trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, Anna is still needing, some shekels, friends. We need to ring the bell, sound the alarm, and help get some funds because she's sending these notices out. And every time she does that, she's working on breaking all of this. And it's going to be interesting what I share with you about these farm bill. The farm, the information that Anna wants me to share with you. Let me just see. The link tree in the show notes should have a link for the Telegram channel, guys. Otherwise, I in a minute can paste it in here. Their theater, yeah, their theater is really, really fun. Juan, it's pretty fun. Ted, I'll put Ted Mac. I'm going to put that stuff on the Telegram channel so you can see what it was. And yes, so we all need to. Yes, Juan, it would be great if the assemblies would start maybe doing some fundraising a little bit for Anna. It would be really, really nice sharing this information out to everyone. And so, have it ready. This is a great time for outreach, guys. It is a great time. And on North Carolina, we have 2 outreach programs going on, one this Saturday and one the next Saturday. And it is going to be so much fun. And we are very excited to start moving. And if you guys on your assemblies have not gone ahead and noticed your sheriffs and everybody, you should be sending them some notices. They need an education because those guys, we really want to protect. I think you want to be able to warn your Leos and stuff. I mean, these are, I don't know. We're friends with a lot of them. They're just living men. They need to know what's going on. And if they read what Trump just posted, maybe that will help them snap out of some of their mind control. I'm not really sure. So Anna wanted me to research and share with you information about the, farm union cases. And this was, it was a little bit before my time. So she also did not give me a lot of notice. Anna is so wonderful. She gave me, I think, like 24 hours to figure it out. I have a job, guys. I actually work also. So I did the best that I could, and it's really fascinating. I want you guys to, I found something that I want to read, okay? So the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, we're familiar with in this era. This began in the mid-70s. And when the Federal Land Bank illegally foreclosed on farmers' mortgages, like all throughout the Midwest, all of those cases, those farmers were defrauded by the banks. We're not surprised, right? And with approval of the Federal Reserve System. Well, these court cases would eventually become known as the Farmer Claims Program. In 1978, an elderly farmer in Colorado, he purchased a farm with a loan from the Federal Land Bank. And after he died, the property was passed on to his son, Roy Schwasinger Jr. And he was a retired military general. Soon after, the Federal Land Bank officer and federal marshal appeared on his property and informed him that the bank was foreclosing on his farm and that he had to vacate within 30 days. Well, without his knowledge, his deceased father had signed a stipulation that reverted the property back to the Federal Land Bank in the event of the borrower's death. Well, he was outraged, this Roy, Schwasinger, and he filed a class action lawsuit in the Denver federal court system. The case didn't go very far because the suit was dismissed because he didn't file it correctly, okay? Anyway, this began Roy Schwasinger's investigation into the inner workings of the banking system. And in 1982, he was given a contract by the U.S. Senate and later Supreme Court to investigate banking fraud. But because he was under a strict non-disclosure order, he was not allowed to tell the media what he discovered. And in the late 1980s, he began sharing his knowledge with others, including high-ranking military personnel who helped him bring about a class action lawsuit against the federal government. Well, this first series of these lawsuits began in the mid-'80s when William and Shirley Bakersville of Fort Collins, Colorado, were involved in the bankruptcy case with First Interstate Bank of Fort Collins, who was trying to foreclose on their farm. At a restaurant, their lawyer informed them that he would no longer be able to help them, and he walked off. Overhearing the conversation, Roy Schwasinger offered his advice on how to appeal the case in bankruptcy court. So in '87, they filed an appeal, case number 87-C-716, with the United States District Court in Colorado. On November 3rd, 1988, the Denver federal court system ruled that indeed the banks had defrauded the Bakersvilles and proceeded to reverse its bankruptcy decision. But when the foreclosed property was not returned, they filed a new lawsuit. Eventually, 23 other farmers, ranchers, and Indians swindled by the banks in the same manner would join in the case. In these cases, the banks were foreclosing on properties using fraudulent methods, such as charging exorbitant interest, illegal foreclosure, or by not crediting mortgage payments to their account as they should have been. But instead, they would steal the mortgage payments for themselves, triggering foreclosure on the property. After running out of money, they continued their fight without help of lawyers. And so, with some assistance by the Farmers Union, a new lawsuit was filed against the Federal Land Bank and the Farmers Credit System. That case number was 92-C-1781. The district court ruled in their favor and ordered the banks to return the stolen properties with help from either federal marshals or the National Guard. But when no payments were made, the farmers declared involuntary Chapter 7 bankruptcy against the Federal Land Bank and the Farmers Credit System. The banks appealed their case, insisting they were not a business but a federal agency, therefore they were not liable to pay the damages. So the farmers' legal team adopted a new strategy. According to the Federal Land Bank's 1933 charter, they are not allowed to make loans directly to applicants, but instead could only back loans as guarantor in case of default. Because the Federal Land Bank had violated this rule, the farmers' legal team was able to successfully sue the bank for damages. Word of the lawsuit began to spread. The legal team would teach others how to fight foreclosures and help them file lawsuits as well, like case number 93-1308-M. Celebrities such as Willie Nelson joined in the cause and helped raise money during his Farm Aid concerts. Here, Willie Nelson described, well, he has lots of different cases, you guys, where he was describing in his own words, all the events leading up to the farmer claims. So you guys can look up some of his videos, okay? Anyway, the Baskerville case had now become the farmers' claims, a class action lawsuit. So worried about the legal ramifications, the government retaliated against the farmers by hitting them each with outrageous IRS fees or by imprisoning the legal team under frivolous or non-related charges. So when the farmers realized that they were being unfairly targeted, they had military generals such as General Roy Schwasinger sit in the courtroom to make sure the bribe judges would vote according to constitutional law. The farmers, now with a large team of knowledgeable people of law behind them, filed a new case to claim additional damages from the fraudulent loaning activities of the farmers' credit system. Losing the appeals, like they lost those appeals as well, more and more evidence was being collected. According to the National Banking Act, all banks are required to register their charters with the Federal and State Bureau of Records, but none of the banks complied in allowing the legal team to sue the Farmers Credit System. Not only was the Farmers Credit System not chartered to do business with the American Banking Association, but so were other quasi-government organizations such as the Federal Housing Administration, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and even the Federal Reserve Bank. The farmers' claims The farmers' claims lawsuits were thrown out of the court at each level, with the records purposely being destroyed. And so, in the early 1990s, Roy Schwasinger brought the case before the United States Supreme Court. Some of the content of the case is sealed from public eyes, but most of it can be viewed today. Almost unanimously, the U.S. Supreme Court justices ruled that the farmers' union claims were indeed valid. Therefore, all property foreclosed by the farmers' credit system was illegal, and all those who foreclosed would have to receive damages. In addition, they ruled that the U.S. federal government and banks had defrauded the farmers and all U.S. citizens out of vast sums of money and property. Furthermore, the court ruled the shocking truth that the IRS was a Puerto Rican trust and that the Federal Reserve was unlawful, that the income tax amendment was only ratified by 4 states and therefore was not a legal amendment, that the IRS code was not enacted into positive law within the Code of Federal Regulations, and how the U.S. government illegally foreclosed on farmers' homes with help from federal agencies. Positive laws that have been enacted by a properly instituted and recognized branch of the government. Irrefutable proof was presented by a retired CIA agent. He provided testimony and records of the bank's illegal activities to lead further evidence that the farmers' union claims were indeed legitimate. The implications of such a decision were profound. All gold, silver, and property titles taken by the Federal Reserve and IRS must be returned to the people. The legal team sought assistance from a small group of benevolent visionaries consisting of politicians, military generals, and business people who have been secretly working to restore the Constitution since the mid-1950s. Somehow, within their ranks, a 4-star U.S. Army general received title and receiver of the original 1933 United States bankruptcy. When the case was brought before the U.S. Supreme Court, they ruled in his favor, giving the Army general title over the United States, Inc. Legal action was then passed onto the Senate Finance Committee, and Senator Sam Nunn, who was working with Roy Schwasinger, with the help of covert congressional and political pressure, President George H.W. Bush issued an executive order, A, on October 23rd, 1991, which provided a provision allowing anyone who has a claim against the federal government to receive payment as long as it's within the rules of the original format of the case. And Executive Order number 12778, Principles of Ethical Conduct for Government Officers and Employees, October 23rd, 1991, according to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, all present and succeeding debts against the U.S. Treasury must be assumed by the Federal Reserve. Thus, the farmers' claims legal team was able to use that executive order to not only force the Federal Reserve to pay out damages in a gold-backed currency, but also allow them to receive legal ownership over the bankruptcy of United States, Inc. To collect damages, the farmers' legal team used an obscure attachment to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which most people are not aware of. After the Civil War, the government allowed citizens to claim a payment on anyone who suffered damages as a result of the federal government failing to protect its citizens from harm or damages by a foreign government. President Grant had this attachment sealed from public eyes, but somehow someone, the farmers' legal team, got a hold of it. If you listen to that carefully, it specifies damages by a foreign government. That foreign government is the corporate federal government, which has been masquerading to the public as the constitutional government. Remember, this goes back to the Organic Act of 1871 and the Trading with the Enemies Act of 1933, which defined all citizens as enemy combatants under the federal system known as the United States. That's interesting, right? So the justices and farmers' legal team recognized how evil and corrupt our federal government had become. And to counteract this, they added some provisions in the settlement to bring the government back under control. So, first, they would have to be paid using a lawful currency backed by gold and silver, as the Constitution dictates. This would eliminate inflation and gyrating, economic cycles created by the Federal Reserve System. B, second, they would be required to go back to common law instead of this admiralty law under the gold fringe flags. Under common law, if there is no damage or harm done, then there is no violation of law. This would eliminate millions of laws which are used to control the masses and protect corrupt politicians. C, lastly, the IRS would have to be dismantled and replaced with a national sales tax. This is the basis of the NASARA law. When the legal team finally settled on a figure, each individual would receive an average of $20 million paid per claim, multiplied by a total of 336,000 claims that were filed against the U.S. federal government. The total payout would come to a staggering $6.6 trillion. The U.S. Supreme Court placed a gag order on this case, struck all information from the Federal Registry, and placed all records in the Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court files. Up to that point, Senator Sam Nunn had kept the Baskerville case records within his office. A settlement was agreed to out of the court, and a settlement was agreed to out of the court, and the decision was sealed by Janet Reno. Because the case was sealed, claimants are not allowed to share the court documents to media outlets without violating the settlement, but they can still tell others about the lawsuit. This is why you probably have not heard about this. In 1991, Roy Schwasinger went before a Senate committee to present evidence of the bank's and government's criminal activity. He informed them how the corporation of the United States was tied to the establishment of a new world order, which would bring about a fascist one-world government ruled by the international bankers. So, in 1992, a task force was put together consisting of over 300 retired and 35 active U.S. military officers who strongly supported constitutional law. This task force was responsible for investigating governmental offices, congressional officers, judges, and the Federal Reserve. Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jeremy Borda, General David McLeod, former director of the CIA, William Colby, they uncovered the common practice of bribery and extortion and extortion that was committed by both senators and judges. The criminal activity was so rampant that only 2 out of the 535 members of Congress were deemed honest. But most importantly, they carried out the first ever audit of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was used to giving orders to politicians and had no intentions of being audited. However, after they were informed their offices would be raided under military gunpoint if necessary, they complied with the investigation. After reviewing their files, the military officers found $800 trillion sitting in accounts, which should have been applied to the national debt. I hope that's sinking in for you. And contrary to federal government propaganda, they also discovered that most nations had, in fact, owed money to the United States instead of the other way around. These hidden trillions were then confiscated and placed into European bank accounts in order to generate enormous funds needed to pay the farmers' claims class action lawsuit. Later, this money would become the basis of the prosperity programs. Despite these death blows, President George H.W. Bush and the Illuminati continued on with their plans of global enslavement. In August of 1992, the military officers confronted President Bush and demanded he sign the agreement that he would return the United States to be a constitutional law and ordered him to never use the term New World Order again. Bush pretended to cooperate, but secretly planned to bring out the New World Order anyway by signing an executive order on December 25th, 1992. That would have indefinitely closed all banks, giving Bush an excuse to declare martial law. Are you with me still? Okay. Under the chaos of martial law, Bush intended to install a new constitution, which would have kept everyone currently in office in their same position for 25 years, and it would have removed all rights to elect new officials. The military intervened and stopped Bush from signing that executive order. In 1993, members of the Supreme Court, certain members of Congress, and representatives from the Clinton government meet with high-ranking U.S. military officers who were demanding a return to constitutional law, reforms of the banking system, and financial redress. They agreed to create the farm claims process, which would allow the legal team to set up meetings all over the country on a grassroots level to help others file claims and to educate them about the lawsuit. A claim of harm could be made on any loan issued by a financial institution for all interest paid, foreclosures, attorneys, and court fees, IRS taxes or liens, real estate and property taxes, mental and emotional stress caused by the loss of property, stress-related illnesses such as suicide and divorce, and even warrants. Incarceration and probation could also be claimed. But the Clinton government undermined their efforts by requiring the farm claims to use a specific form designated by the government. This form imposed an administrative fee of $300 for each claim, which was later used in 1994 as a basis to arrest the leaders of the legal team, including Roy Schwasinger. The government was so afraid of what they would say during their trial on Michigan that extra steps were taken to conceal the true nature of the case. County courthouse employees were not allowed to work between Monday and Thursday during the course of the trial. And outside the courthouse, FBI agents swarmed the perimeter, preventing the media and visitors from learning what was going on as well. Harassment and retaliation by the government increased. Many were sent to prison or murdered while incarcerated. Despite being protected by his military personnel, the Army general who acquired the original 1933 title of bankruptcy of the United States was imprisoned, killed, and replaced with a clone. This clone was then used as a decoy to prevent any further claims from being filed. During the first Clinton administration, the military delayed many of Clinton's federal appointments until they were sure these individuals would help restore constitutional law. One such individual who promised to bring about the necessary changes was Attorney General Janet Reno. In agreement with the Supreme Court ruling on June 3rd, 1993, Janet Reno ordered the Delta Force and Navy SEALs to Switzerland, England, and Israel to recapture trillions of dollars of gold stolen by the Federal Reserve System from the strategic gold reserves. These nations cooperated with the raid because they were promised their debts owed to the United States would be canceled, and because the people who stole the money from the United States also stole money from their nations as well. This bullion is to be used for the new currency backed by precious metals. It's now safely stockpiled at the NORAD complex at Colorado Springs, Colorado, and 4 other repositories. Janet Reno's action so enraged the powers that be that it resulted in her death. She was then replaced with a clone. It was this creature that was responsible for covering up the various Clinton scandals. To keep the Secretary of the United States Treasury, Robert Rubin, in line, he too was also cloned. For the remainder of their term in office, both Reno and Rubin received their salaries from the International Monetary Fund as foreign agents and not from the U.S. Treasury. Despite these actions, the legal team continued on with their fight while managing to avoid bloodshed and a major revolution. In 1993, the Farmer Claims Process name was changed to Bank Claims. Between 1993 and 1996, the U.S. Supreme Court required U.S. citizens to file bank claims to collect damages paid by the U.S. Treasury Department. This process closed in 1996. During this time, the U.S. Supreme Court assigned one or more justices to monitor the progress of the rulings. They enlisted help of experts in economics, monetary systems, banking, constitutional government and law, and many other related areas. These justices built coalitions of support and assistance with thousands of people worldwide, known as white knights. The term white knights was borrowed from the world of big business. It refers to a vulnerable company that is rescued by a corporation or a wealthy person from a hostile takeover. To implement the required changes, the 5 justices spent years negotiating how the reformations would occur. Eventually, they settled on certain agreements known as the Accords with the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve Bank owners, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and with numerous other countries, including the United Kingdom and countries of Eurozone. Because these U.S. banking reformations will impact the entire world, the IMF, World Bank, and other countries had to be involved. The reformations require that the Federal Reserve be absorbed by the U.S. Treasury Department, and the bank's fraudulent activities must be stopped, and payment must be made for past harm. In 1998, the military generals who originally participated in the farmers' claim process realized that the U.S. Supreme Court justices had no intentions of implementing the Accords. So they decided the only way to implement their formations was through a law passed by Congress. In 1999, a 75-page document known as the National Economic Security and Reformations Act, NESARA, was submitted to Congress, where it sat with little action for almost a year. Late one evening on March 9th, 2000, a written quorum call was hand-delivered by Delta Force and Navy SEALs to 15 members of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House who were sponsors and co-sponsors of NESARA. They were immediately escorted by Delta Force and Navy SEALs to their respective voting chambers, where they passed the National Economic Security and Reformations Act. These 15 members of Congress were the only people lawfully allowed to hold office in accordance with the original 13th Amendment. Remember, British soldiers destroyed copies of the Titles of Nobility Amendment, TONA, in the War of 1812 because it prevented anyone who had ties to the Crown of England from holding public office. NESARA is the most groundbreaking reformation to sweep not only this country, but our planet in its entire history. The act does away with the Federal Reserve Bank, the IRS, the shadow government, and much more. NESARA implements the following changes. 1, zeroes out all credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. This is the Federal Reserve's worst nightmare. 1, a jubilee or a forgiveness of debt. 2, abolishes the income tax. 3, abolishes the IRS. Employees of the IRS will be transferred into the U.S. Treasury National Sales Tax area. Number 4, creates a 14% flat rate, non-essential, new items only sales tax revenue for the government. In other words, food and medicine will not be taxed, nor will used items such as old homes. Increases benefits to senior citizens. Returns constitutional law to all courts and legal matters. Reinstate the original title of nobility amendment. Hundreds of thousands of Americans under the control of foreign powers will lose their citizenship, be deported to other countries, and barred from reentry for the remainder of their life. And millions of people will soon discover their college degrees are now worthless paper. Yeah, reasons why we don't allow our sons and daughters to go to college. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after NESARA's announcement. The interim government will cancel all national emergencies and return us back to constitutional law. Monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities of special interest groups. Creates a new U.S. Treasury. This is the rainbow currency, right? Backed by gold, silver, and platinum, precious metals, ending the bankruptcy of the United States initiated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Forbids the sale of American birth certificate records as chattel property bonds by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Initiates new U.S. Treasury banking system in alignment with constitutional law. Eliminates the Federal Reserve System. During the transition period, the Federal Reserve will be allowed to operate side by side of the U.S. Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. It restores financial privacy. It retains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. It ceases all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide. It establishes peace throughout the world. Releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes. Enables the release of over 6,000 patents of suppressed technologies that are being withheld from the public under the guise of national security, including free energy devices, anti-gravity, and sonic healing machines. Because President Clinton's clone had no interest in signing NESARA into law on October 10th, 2000, under orders from U.S. military generals, the elite naval SEALs, and Delta Force stormed the White House and under gunpoint forced Bill Clinton to sign NESARA. During this time, Secret Service and White House security personnel were ordered to stand down, disarmed, and allowed to witness this event under a gag order. From its very inception, Bush Sr., the corporate government, major bank houses, and the Carlyle Group have opposed NESARA. To maintain secrecy, the case details and the docket numbers were sealed and revised within the official congressional registry to reflect a commemorative coin, and then again it was revised even more recently. This is why there are no public congressional records and why a search for this law will not yield the correct results until after the reformations are made public. You probably never heard of this law due to an extremely strict gag order placed upon politicians, media personnel, and bank officers. Even though Alex Jones or Ron Paul will not tell you about it, the law is still valid. Members of Congress will not tell us any of this because they have been ordered by the U.S. Supreme Court justices to deny the existence of NESARA or face charges of treason punishable by death. Some members of Congress have actually been charged with obstruction when Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone was about to break the gag order, but before he could, his small passenger plane crashed, killing his wife, daughter, and himself. If fear isn't enough to keep Congress in line, money is. The CIA routinely bribes senators with stolen loot from the bankroll programs. Every senator has been bribed with a minimum of $200 million deposited in a Bank of America account in Canada. You will never hear the media networks report about NESARA. To maintain silence, major news networks such as CNN are paid in the tune of $2 billion annually. Some of this loot is funneled by the Mormon Church in Utah through Senator Orrin Hatch's office and Bank of America. Not only is Congress bribed, but the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff, an upper tier of the government, including the president, receives payments as well. Only the Provost Marshal has the lawful authority to arrest these individuals, but sadly, he won't do his job either. It seems the United States military is full of pencil-pushing politicians who care more about advancement than doing their jobs. Not surprisingly, much disinformation about NESARA can be found on the internet. Prominent naysayers include Quatloos.com, Quatloos.com, Quat, Quatloos.com, which is rumored to be a CIA front. NESARA.org, which is maintained by the Bush family. Sherry Shriner, and various internet channelers receiving their messages from telepathic spooks have all contributed to the confusion. Even the information on Wikipedia is in error. Wikipedia gives you the history of CIA agent Harvey Bernard's NESARA law. If you look closely, this law stands for National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act, which would have made reforms to the economy and replaced the income tax with a national sales tax. This law was rejected by Congress in the 1990s, but there is little mention of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act on Wikipedia or its ramifications. September 11th, 2001. The next step is to announce NESARA to the world, but it's not an easy task to do. Many powerful groups have tried to prevent the implementation of NESARA. The NESARA law requires that at least once a year an effort be made to announce the law to the public. 3 current U.S. Supreme Court judges control the committee in charge of NESARA's announcement. These judges have used their overall authority to secretly sabotage NESARA's announcement. In 2001, after much negotiation, the Supreme Court justices ordered the current Congress to pass resolutions approving NESARA. This took place on September 9th, 2001, 18 months after NESARA became law. On September 10th, 2001, George Bush Sr. moved into the White House to steer his son on how to block the announcement. The next day, on September 11th, 2001, at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Alan Greenspan was scheduled to announce the new U.S. Treasury banking system, the debt forgiveness of all U.S. citizens, and abolishment of the IRS as the first part of the debt forgiveness for all U.S. citizens, and abolishment of the IRS as the first part of the public announcement of NESARA. Just before the announcement at 9 a.m., Bush Sr. ordered the demolition of World Trade Center to stop, and international banking computers on floors 1 and 2 in the North Tower from initiating the new U.S. Treasury banking system. Explosives in the World Trade Center were planted by both CIA and Mossad operatives and detonated remotely in Building 7, which was demolished later that day in order to cover up their crime. Remote pilot technology was used in a flyover event to deliver a payload of explosives into the Pentagon at the exact location of the White Knights in their new Naval Command Center, who were coordinating activities supporting NESARA's implementation nationwide. With the announcement of NESARA stopped dead in its tracks, George Bush Sr. decapitated any hopes of returning the government back to the people. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. I just want to say Anna wrote her article because she's calling Willie Nelson back to make his announcement. Anna's working powerfully in the background. She's not taking a break, okay? But she needs all her energy, and she needed to protect all her fields. And so she's taken a hiatus from public view. That doesn't mean that she doesn't still need all the funds that we can raise for her to help her pay for continuing to hammer all these folks with the notices. And she knows what she's doing. I think we all know that she knows what she's doing. She wanted you to receive this message. So let me just take a look in the questions and see if there's anything going on here. That's right, Juan. Nobody even knows how much a trillion is. Yeah. It's important for all of us to, put our notices in with Anna, because we need them to know that we know. We need them to know that we know. We need them to know that the watchers are watching. It's not going to stay under wraps, Tom. It's not going to stay under wraps. We just unwrapped it. We just unwrapped it. If anybody didn't really know this, then, we need to pay attention. All right? Everybody, look, join me. I'm not going to have my Saturday call this Saturday and the following Saturday. So that's October 4th and October 11th, because we are doing in the flesh meetings on North Carolina right now. I encourage all of you to focus on your assemblies, focus on getting your courts up, focus on recognizing the truth, focus on your discernment, okay? Focus on figuring out who are the players on your assembly that are putting a boot on your neck and keeping you from being able to move forward. All right. I heard Louisiana has these men that are just going to town. They are doing amazing work. The ladies are so proud of the men on Louisiana. I have to tell you, the men on North Carolina, they are getting it. They're getting it together. And we ladies on North Carolina are very proud of the men. Very proud of the men. North Carolina is getting it also. And we are getting organized. And you guys have to do that too. We're not identifying these people to hate them, okay? We're not identifying them to be mad at them. We're not identifying them for any reason except for to know who they are, so we can just walk right around them and be like, okay, we know you're a little bit deranged right now, but we're going to come back. We're going to come back. We're just going to go get the court stood up. You can't do that when you have people inside actively working against you if you don't know that, right? So now you know. So now you can get better, because guess what? Americans aren't dumb. You're not dumb. You just didn't know what the truth was. You didn't know. And now that you know, you can be better. Now that you know, because you know what? Political correctness trains you not to label people. You got to label them. You got to know who you're dealing with. You got to know how to read the map. You got to know how to, make an assessment about the terrain. If you're going to go somewhere, you have to know, is the weather good? Do I need a jacket? You got to be able to just know basic things, right? So nobody's telling anybody to quit their job. I work. My husband's working. All of us work. We didn't never stop working. And we do this too. This we do 2 and 3 hustles and this. Okay? So get better. Get better. And if you can't get better with that, just focus on your own mind and just think nicer thoughts. Why don't you just go to sleep? Because you know what? When you go to sleep, you remember who you really are. When you go to sleep, you remember who you are, and you are important, and you have arrived, and you were born worthy beyond belief. So let me tell you what, if you think you need to quit your job to start helping, you don't. Why don't you go take a nap? Why don't you go sit down and be quiet and just think good thoughts? Why don't you go play some good music and do that job, whatever it is, and just be happy, for God's sake? Can you just go and do your job that you can't quit and be happy? The whole idea is for your mind not to be possessed by Satan. If your mind can just not be possessed by Satan and you can just be happy, find your favorite song, find your favorite whatever. And when you can't do that, go to sleep and stay asleep and just be asleep. Because when you're asleep, you remember who you are. And you are most powerful when you are asleep. So if you don't know how to do anything to help your assembly, if you don't know anything about how to fix the problems, can you be happy? Can you just be happy in this moment right now? And just stay there? Just be happy. I'm not asking you to be content. That's what church wants you to do. Churches want you to just find contentment. No, we want you to be better than that. We want you to find ecstasy. You can be joyful and giggling all the time. And whatever you have to do so that you can be joyful and breathe and be happy. Can you just be happy now? Can you just be happy? If you can't find a way to get happy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll leave the door cracked for you because the new earth is rising. And if you are operating on that low vibration, you can't come along. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So do the best that you can. Start at the first episode. Listen, tune in, jump in, and get in wherever you can fit in. And we praise you. We praise you. We know that if you want to get involved, you will figure out a way. And if the only thing you can do is to be happy, that is important. Can you please just hold that? Hold that, because you have 30 trillion watts of life force coming through you. So can you just find a way to direct that towards joy? Can you bring the joy? Bring the joy, find the love, Okay? And watch how fast all the relief comes. Okay? It's going to come real quick as soon as you get happy. As soon as you aren't worrying. You know what makes it go faster? Moving your money. If you have a job, if you're working and you can't stop, keep the money moving. Don't put it in a bank. Keep it going, because the more that it moves, the more that funnel stays nice and greased up, okay? And if you can send some up Anna's way, I know she can use it. All right? Okay, guys. I hope you guys have an incredible evening. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you Tuesday at exit, for exit stage left at 1:00. And maybe Anna's coming back next week. I don't know. I know she needed you to know this story, okay? So if you didn't hear all of it or you tuned in late, please go back to the beginning and catch up and know that there is great love here for you, okay? There's great love here for you.